Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Yes? No? All right. My name is Adam Cicchetti. I work at Deja Vu Security. We do hardware penetration testing for firmware, chips, custom kernels, kernel drivers, things of that nature. Had a brief stint at Amazon for 2 years, and then Leviathan for 3 years, and now I'm independent. So, go ahead, man.
Yeah, here. Can you hear me all right? Yeah. My name is Esteban Gutierrez. I'm just some guy. I work at a big Fortune 500 company who wishes to remain anonymous. I've been doing information security for about 14 years. I've been in e-commerce, DoD networks, designed massive enterprise network security infrastructures for some parts of the Army, and I really like cyborgs. Cyborgs are awesome. I really like cyborgs. Ever since I saw Luke Skywalker's hand, ever since I watched The Bionic Man, Steve Austin. Some people here don't even know who Steve Austin is. Fuck you. But dead cyborgs are less awesome. They're not quite as awesome as real active live cyborgs. Unless, of course, we're at war with those cyborgs. In which case, dead cyborgs are good. So what is a cyborg? There's a lot of talk about it and different ways of thinking about it. There's a really great talk by a woman named Quinn Norton that was at 2006 TourCon, a few other places as well, like TED. And she does a really great overview of what that means. We've modified ourselves with technology since pretty much time immemorial. Tools like shovels, bows and arrows, contact lenses. I forget what SEM stands for. Chemicals, caffeine. We've done a lot to ourselves to both extend our bodies, to extend our capabilities, to make things better for ourselves. Vaccines are a cyborg art in some sense because it allows us to outlive how we would normally live. A lot of that stuff was just seen as magic in some ages. Machines, computers. Good. Next slide. And for the most part, all those merging of technology with people has really been external, right? You can put down a tool. You can turn off your iPhone or G1, most of us. You can stop drinking caffeine. Yeah, I know it's a lie. You can fix a car. You can reformat your computer, right? But with cyborg or cybernetic or bionic type scenarios, technology becomes a part of you. You can't. Right now, the primary impact or the primary area where this is happening is implants, right? So you can't easily remove them. You can't update them, or it's difficult to update them. You can't really, there's issues with patching and upgrading. It's like these are things that are somehow inside you or part of you, and there's a lot of good questions that come up there. So what is a cyborg? There's a lot of definitions out there. It's an integration of we decided on this one just because it sounded nice and generic. It's an integration of a biological organism and technology into a whole. There's Luke Skywalker's hand. NASA did this really kind of cool model prior to sending people up into space. The whole point of it being, how do we need to modify a person before they can live in space? I don't think I can even begin to explain that Venn diagram. It's just kind of fucking crazy. So. Here's some example of cyborgs. Amy Millan on the left there. She's she's well known in acting circles. She's got different legs than you and I do, or most of us here do. And she's actually as capable of running much faster than at least me and some other people that I know who are really fast. This little child on the here was born with congenital ear defects, and once he got cochlear implants, he could hear his mom talking to him and started actually reacting to her. Down in the bottom is, what's her name? Kat Wilkins, I believe. If you subscribe to National Geographic, you should. The January article had a very long review of her technology and what's going on with her. You'll see all those sensors on her stump, and that plugs into a cybernetic arm that reads the signals that are being sent down to muscle groups that have been rewired surgically to react to various nerves that essentially, in essence, all she needs to do is think about moving her arm, and the arm moves and reacts in the way that a normal arm would. And there's constant upgrades going on in her technology to make it actually safe and seem somewhat natural. It's a pretty amazing article, actually. Here's a cyborg being detained by a robot. The war has already started.
So why now, right? I mean, basically science fiction writers and a lot of other people have been talking about technologies and cyborgs and science fiction for a very, very long time. Well, we're actually on the cusp of a very, very interesting event. We're entering what we've kind of termed the coined the term even, the hospital age. So we have the largest group of individuals ever in the history of man about to enter the period of their life where they're constantly in and out of hospitals. And a lot of these individuals are going to walk out of hospitals with implants in them, brand new cutting edge technology. And a lot of these people will, be guinea pigs and take, whatever implants they're being given to try and extend their life or to try to get a better quality of life back. So thank you, baby boomers, for giving us this really awesome, wonderful possible opportunity to actually talk about how the security of implants and cyborgs is going to affect us in the near future. So let's talk about how we've totally failed. We've already completely and utterly failed. So we've anonymized these products. These pictures are not the same products as the ones we're going to talk about, but a friend...
So if you work at one of these companies and you see your product, please don't take offense.
Yes.
And don't sue us.
My friend's father, who is 65 years old, has Bluetooth-enabled hearing aids. This allows him to have a better quality of life. He pairs his hearing aids with his cell phone so that he can hear the incoming calls and talk back on the cell phone. I'm sitting at breakfast with my friend and his father. And I look at him and I go, so when you paired that thing, what was the password? It turns out it's 4 zeros, and it's unchangeable. So I want to spend a little bit of time in southern Florida at some point, just kind of driving around and being God for a little while. But that's...
You must rewrite your will. Send all your money to Adam Cicchetti.
We've totally failed. We've already failed at this. So this is based on the UW work that was WU work, done a little while ago by Kevin Fu and group. And so this is an implantable cardiovascular defibrillator. Basically, this thing when you're...
See the little lump on his chest right there?
Yeah. In the upper right-hand corner. This man's very proud of his defibrillator.
Talk about that in a sec.
No. Yeah. So this thing basically detects whether or not your heart has stopped and then gives you a shock and wakes you back up. As it turns out, it's wirelessly controlled over an unencrypted protocol and can be programmed remotely from a range of about 15 centimeters, but that means I have to bump into somebody in the subway to reprogram their defibrillation device.
And with the proper antenna technology, and I think you can extend that distance, as some of you know. This picture I found on Flickr, just a random image. This is what's his name? Oh God, it's in the notes. But anyways, he was very proud of his ICD and just posted it up there, along with all the pictures of the cute boyfriends that he has and stuff. So he's cool.
No, for real. We have totally, utterly, completely failed. So they have deep brain electrode implants for individuals that have Parkinson's.
Tremors, and extreme cases of OCD. Anybody in the crowd?
Anyone? Again, this thing is programmed wirelessly from a handheld device, and it has patterns that it sends for your particular disease or for Parkinson's or OCD. And you can reprogram the patterns as well as the intensity, and this changes the behavior of the area that it's stimulating to either, kind of jolt you back from shaking or to kind of pull you back from being completely focused on something. And this is a real X-ray. This picture is real from one of these implants. So this is what you can control wirelessly inside of somebody's brain.
We failed already.
All right. I think you're starting to see a theme here. We have completely and utterly failed. Not only have we failed in the current generation of technology, but we've failed in the stuff that we're about to build. All of the current technology right now isn't actually being extended to do anything else. They decided that a lot of these things are good, but what would be really great is if your doctor could have live updates from your device. And so a lot of these medical reporting infrastructures are based on old telephony technology or now VoIP technology. And all of these protocols are basically unencrypted. All of this information is being sent back to the doctors and reporting back whether or not you're in good condition or bad condition is sniffable and viewable. The next generation is even better. If any of you ever played Shadowrun, the whole medvac thing that would come and pick you up when your character dies, that's next. So the next generation will be GSM and GPS enabled. So when you've fallen over from a heart attack or your liver has failed, they'll send an ambulance right to your location. So if you can think about it, a lot of the people that are going to have these types of implants initially are going to be really, really rich individuals or political characters that are, of high value. So being able to denial of service, their ambulance service to come pick them up from having a heart attack, or being able to just swarm ambulances over a particular convention becomes a very interesting scenario.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably not even going to be GSM. It's going to be WiMAX and 4G that's going to be going there. So, and think about, right now, how many of you are ripping out or have already ripped out modem banks from whatever sort of intercompany connections you have, and you're replacing them with VPN connections or web-tied, application-enabled interfaces on your DMZ. Well, that's what they're doing here too. M2M is machine-to-machine communication. PCN is patient care networks, and that's basically the rise or the evolution of web-enabled XML SOAP calls over the internet through your company's firewall to your CEO's desk, and we'll talk about that in a second. We're not the first to look at this stuff. I mean, obviously we've made a lot of sci-fi and anime references. How many of you like Ghost in a Shell? Yeah. And Kevin Fu is, I think out of UW, he's got a medical device security center. Actually, it's pretty cool stuff. It's nice, once we were digging around and doing some of this initial research, we figured out, there's actually some people looking at this stuff. And there's actually a medical device security center with not a lot of papers up there, but still some kind of cool ideas and stuff. Gadi Evron has actually talked about this, I think, at 2063. Kono, Tamara Denning is actually a pretty prolific author in this space. Bruce Schneier's made some comments about malware on medical implants. Many of you probably already started looking at this stuff, I hope. And I think Arsenake's thought about some, what happens if we take just raw brain material and use it to do cracking on keys and stuff like that. So our focus is not on any specific device. Really, this is just kind of a general exploration of the space. And we're also, there's a couple of specific areas that we're going to look at, or devices. And we're also not looking at privacy, HIPAA laws, or ethics. A lot of the papers that are out there now at the Medical Device Security Center and a few other places, they really are focusing on HIPAA. They're focusing on laws. They're focusing on ethics. They're focusing on, is this really right, or not is this really right, but how do we protect the privacy of this stuff? And, as we know, policy and compliance and regulations are not a solution. Attackers don't follow the rules. And honestly, as a defender, they don't really do me a whole lot of good. Maybe they kill some low-hanging fruit. But when this stuff starts getting into my enterprise network, I need to start thinking about it a lot differently beyond just the HIPAA compliance. So our focus is really looking at those attack and defense scenarios. We're going to do that by defining a cyborg security landscape. I'm going to show you how we sort of slice up cyborg functionality, and then go over some scenarios from an attack and defense perspective. So we're going to have to cut it a little short, though, since we're running out of time. Hackers don't have ethics. Well, that's not true. A lot do, but, we're pretty chaotic.
When somebody's decided to pull the trigger on, taking an ODA and hitting a pacemaker or a liver implant or an insulin pump, we have to assume that ethics have kind of walked out the door. So we have to look at it from that perspective. There's no middle ground here. There's no rebooting the server for your liver. I mean,
in some sense, you could probably look at that as an attempted murder. So it would be just as much as if someone was trying to shoot somebody with a gun. You have sort of exigent circumstances for your defense, probably in such cases, I would guess.
right. And so, I mean,
You want to repeat what he said?
I don't remember.
I can't really. He says in some sense it basically comes down to murder, right? This was a point I think we were going to make at some point, but Bruce had mentioned earlier, like, hey, how do we prove stuff to our execs and the people who give us money to do things? Oh, we show them metrics. Okay, great, so I'm going to have a metric now. How many people didn't die on my network, right, this year? Or how many people did die from hacking attempts or intrusions into something?
Let's skip forward.
No, actually, go back a second. I just want to talk to... so again, another quote from Quinn Norton's brilliant talk. The body is just another programmable system. And one of the ways that in which it is this concept called neuroplasticity. It's a really interesting concept. We're not going to go into it. Google it, look at it. It's fantastic. If you've watched Dollhouse or Fringe, you've probably heard references to it. Yes?
Think about inadvertent jamming. You don't mean to, it happens anyway.
Yeah.
Wi-Fi networks are jammed by microwave ovens.
So he's making a comment about inadvertent jamming of these devices, and we're going to actually talk about that a little bit. So this is a real brief. This is kind of how I've sort of organized my thinking about cyborgs. Right now, most of the technology or the integration of the technologies is focused on restoration, and then I'll talk a little bit about enhancement and augmentation in a second. Go ahead, next one. So right now, restoration. What is restoration? So we all have, we're humans, most of us, and we have basic capabilities, right? Arms, legs, sight, smell, sense. And for the most part, a lot of this technology, as you saw from some of the examples, is focusing really on restoring those capabilities that, for whatever reason, have been lost or damaged or maybe not even there to begin with. So a lot of the research and a lot of the commercial and medical technology that's out there now are doing that restoration function. And I've kind of tried to figure out, well, how do I interface with that as a person or as a human or as an organism? And another way that I've kind of split out my thinking is, well, I can either have a physical interface into that technology, a sensory-based interface into that technology, or a cognitive base. Along those levels, really, physical is just something you just put on you, like a real prosthetic. There's some of you are probably going to get penis implants later on when you get really old. Breast implants is some way to think about it. Sensory, that's really, how many of you wear contacts? LASIK surgery, hearing aids, we've already talked about that. And cognitive stuff, there's PTSD, rehab, transcranial, magnetic, I forgot the acronym. Anyways, lots of interesting technology there. Next one. So the next area of function change or integration is where we really start to enhance existing capabilities that we have. So this is moving beyond just getting back a functionality, beyond just having, I want an arm or I want something, right? Now you're going to actually make whatever that thing is even better. You're going to have better eyesight. You're going to see farther. You're going to, be stronger with your arms, powered limbs. You'll have night vision. In the cognitive side, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on in the neuroengineering realm to make things better. Quinn mentions a little pill called the Barbie pill. Essentially, you take it. I can't remember the code name of it. It's used for it's a tanning pill. Melatonin, yeah. Melanotannin, thank you. And it's fantastic. You can get it in Australia. You start taking it, and it gives you a tan. Your libido goes up, and you start losing weight. Who doesn't want that, right? So, and that's one way. So the next area is augmentation, right? Where we're going to be adding something that we don't have. We're not just enhancing or making something that we have better. We're actually going to just create whole new capabilities, whole new things. Maybe I'm going to implant some forearm guns or put a USB key on my finger. We want wings or tails for whatever reason. From a sensory perspective, maybe I'm going to give myself a sense that I don't already have. I mean, there's some articles out there about people who are born blind but somehow develop this echolocation capability, right? They just go through life sort of clicking and being able to hear that. And that kind of pays homage to the fact that we have this plasticity. We can retrain our brains to absorb whatever sort of new capability. In Quinn Norton's talk, she spends a great deal of time speaking about a magnet implant that she got in her hand. And sort of the new world that just kind of opened up to her because of it. She could tell when her hard drive spun up on her laptop. She could run her hand against walls and detect where wires were running because she could just feel it in her finger, right? It's fantastic stuff. So the vulnerability landscape, and so that's how I've kind of been basing sort of my thinking about this. And we're kind of working on Adam and I have been trying to toss together a threat model for this, but it was kind of all over the place, so we didn't want to put it up here. So instead, we put up a cute picture of a bunny attacking you and how you're going to defend your beautiful little beagle. So bottom line is right now we're doing it wrong before there's anything to be done. I mean, right now we understand technology pretty well. We have these are the kinds of generic ways that we defend the tech that we have. Firmware, code, firewalls, patching, attack, and then we attack stuff. You want to take over from here?
Sure.
Oh.
Actually,
I'll tell. Yeah. So one of the interesting thoughts that we had is, well, what as humans, integrated with technology, do we bring to the table that we can actually add to our tools for defense and for attack? Can we take drugs that'll help us survive some kind of hack attack or cyber attack against an implant or something that's embedded in us? Can we meditate our way through someone hacking my implantable cardio defibrillator? Do I just need to rest until I'm better now and healed, right? And then there's issues of will and perception. I mean, then I suspect or I predict that once we start moving in the direction of implantable technology and merging technology into our bodies, this field of study of, what are our sort of nascent human powers that we don't understand, we can't even measure right now. I mean, I think a lot of people kind of refer to it as a split between traditional Western medicine and Eastern medicine, right? I mean, there's all this stuff that goes on that who knows what it does. We'll probably make a lot more ground or advances in that area because we're going to be meshing the two together somehow.
So from an attack perspective, humans are these weird squishy things that you can program. If I say pirate 5 times in a row, pirate, 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 you're all thinking of a pirate in some way, shape, or form right now. You all have conjured up some type of image if it's in your subconscious or if it's in your foreconscious or if you're thinking about a movie about pirates you saw one time. That image is there. And so how can we use the basically ability that the same marketers and advertisers use now for symbol recognition as well as implanting an idea into one's head or basically suggestion to have not only the human body breakdown but the implants that are supposed to be helping that piece of the body break down. So if I run you past a whole bunch of ads about liver problems, you're eventually going to start feeling your liver feel weird. You're going to go, maybe my implant is acting up or something. So I mean, we're looking at basically pounding screws into people's heads until we get something that not only starts triggering their body's reactions, but also the implant's reactions. And what can you do from cascading and chaining attacks from implants to other parts of the body? Can you start making particular parts of the body start to feel weird and move in different ways, which then will affect, an outcome of a different one?
Yeah, what if Joe Grand or Bunny didn't care that, some microchip they wanted to look at was inside a person's body? They just wanted to still look at it.
So we're going to go over some real-world examples. These are based in technologies that are available today and some stuff that's basically on the horizon for tomorrow and the things that we've done research into to finding, the next generation of all this technology that's going to be put out.
Can we do a time check? Does somebody know what time it is? Okay, thanks.
Sure.
So like we mentioned in this matrix that we put up earlier, right? The focus today is on restoral, right? Restoral technologies and integration. We would kind of like, well, what are some scenarios that we can see today based on this? The fact that most of the implants and most of the cyborg engineering that's happening is really based in the medical commercial realm. And so one of the scenarios is that, well, what if I'm sitting at my help desk or, I'm just working at, IT security at some big company and I get this trouble ticket and the CEO sends in a request saying, hey, the executive staff, we need to unblock the firewall to allow some remote medical monitoring equipment so that we can tell that the CEO's pacemaker is working properly. We want to enable some telemetry there. I'm not sure really. I mean, yeah, he's the CEO, so I'm probably going to go ahead and do that. But I think, it really depends on your policy. It really depends on a lot of things, right? It probably turns out that the CEO's health is probably really important, much more important than your policy. And you probably don't have a policy that really addresses that. You're going to go talk to your privacy folks? Yeah, they're going to solve it for you. So, it's going to be one of the scenarios where you have to think very carefully about that. And I was talking with a friend at Black Hat DC about this, and he said, actually, this happened to me. I got this ticket the other day. So this has already happened. Yeah. We're already modifying our infrastructure for this kind of stuff.
So from an attacker perspective, we've basically opened a direct hole to the CEO's laptop, as well as now know the channel that all of that medical information is being reported back. What if I decide that, I want to sniff that information? Instead of doing, something nefarious to the CEO, I just start charting his health and put up a page that has the stock price of the company next to each other, right? I mean, and at what point will shareholders start demanding that, Jobs' liver implant is something that, gets posted online so they can actually track, health of CEOs? So we have a lot of interesting scenarios as a result of even the technology that's just available today. In development is a defibrillator iPhone app, which will monitor the status of said defibrillator. Don't know if this will have any control mechanism yet, but I love the idea of writing an iPhone app that detects that the defibrillator iPhone app is on there, and every time the microphone detects that you're near a Starbucks, it gives you a little jolt and wakes you up. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Yeah, I was like, I wonder if, Apple must be allowing some remote monitoring of Steve Jobs' condition. I mean, come on. So, yeah. I'll go back a second because I just want to cover the DBS stuff. I don't think we gave the numbers on that. When we were looking through the deep brain stimulator, where you saw that basically 4-inch piece of metal stuck in someone's head, there's 60,000 people walking around with that in the U.S. 60,000 people with a deep brain stimulator. Basically, it's a piece of metal inside their head, little wire running down to their chest, remotely programmable. Actually, when in the literature that you get after you get the surgery, they hand you 2 magnets, and this is how you sort of control the device. Great. I'm sure it makes them feel better, but still, yeah. So tomorrow, I think the focus is going to be on enhancements, right? Right now, most of that, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but the segments that are probably going to be looking at this, right now all that research is in the medical realm. It's going to leave that, go more into the commercial realm, and probably head into the do-it-yourself realm. And in fact, we've seen some of this go into the do-it-yourself realm with magnet implants and various other things that people have done to their bodies in order to do it. You want to talk about the pacemaker O'Day?
Sure. So we've done war driving and war walking and Wi-Fi scanning and nanny camera scanning, but a lot of these devices will respond when you ping them with something. They'll respond with an ID number. They'll respond with a version number. So I mean, the concept of basically driving through a neighborhood, initially a very affluent neighborhood, and figuring out which houses have implants, which houses don't have implants, or driving through a retirement community and seeing, oh, who's outdated, whose serial number has been decommissioned by the company that makes that particular device. And the concept of basically, terrorism becomes, I'm going to send a UPS package to a retirement home and it's going to kill half the people there. So we're looking at scenarios that become very, very black and white very quickly. So EMP rubber bullets, right? Like you might get hit in the back with a shmoo ball, but has a small EMP inside. You have an implant and it just wipes it out. 3 days later, you collapse. Nobody really knows why.
Yeah, I don't know how we're doing on time. So enemy hack of a sniper eye. So the Army is actually, or the military is doing a lot of work into this in a lot of different areas. But here's a scenario. You're a special ops person out in the field. You've got your cyber eye, and you're trying to take out a target from however far away. And Central Command is actually monitoring your visual data channel that's coming out of your eyeball. I don't know. I can't imagine in the world that data channel would be could possibly be unencrypted, and that remote forces would be able to get that information. Yeah, and maybe ideally, what if they could actually jam that channel right before you pull the trigger, or inject something into it? So.
All right, let's skip political hack.
Go to the spam.
Spam becomes much more interesting, right? Because we already have people that will take $20,000 or $10,000 and tattoo a URL on their forehead, right? For the last 15 years, e-ink tattoos have been in development, and they're still not quite ready yet. But the interesting thing is that you get a full sleeve tattoo, you go out to party, you have your sleeve turned on, you come back to work, you turn off your sleeves, you go to your board meeting. What happens when other images start showing up there? And what I think is interesting and entertaining is that a lot of people already self-brand. I mean, you probably know somebody that has a Nike or a McDonald's or a Zune tattoo or something, or an Apple tattoo in the back of their head. So now we have, okay, how much money does it cost for me to put a Starbucks logo on the side of your cheek every time you walk into Starbucks? Or, how much will people start selling pieces of their body for to just basically have scrolling ads as a result of having e-ink tattoos? So we're looking at, very clever and cool things. And, all of these things are going to have bugs. There's just no question that at some point or another, 4chan or somebody is not going to have some type of ODA to start displaying unsavory images. And sadly, there's already been kind of, perhaps not cyborg, but a biological hack that 4chan has done.
Right. I mean, I'm sure all of you know about the 4chan attack against the epileptic websites, right? We're going to post images up there that cause them to go into a seizure. That's great. You're taking it. It's not great. But that's like, wow, I mean, that's fucked up. Appropriate use of a shmoo ball. Thank you. And that's not great. No, that's evil. Don't do it. That's bad. And or I'll throw a shmoo ball at you. But now it's taking advantage of that error processing, the erroneous processing in your brain. But now, what if I have the documents for the implant that controls your ocular implant? And now I know exactly what kind of bugs your firmware might have, and I can target that attack against you more carefully. And it's important to point out that a lot of the devices in this space right now are using things like Zigbee for their wireless communication. How many of you sat through a security talk about Zigbee recently? Okay. Yeah.
It's totally broken for anyone.
Yeah. Right. I don't know if we mentioned that. Yeah, all this stuff is already fucked. Oh, yeah, and so if your vendor for your implant goes out of business, oh, sorry, we don't have any more firmware patches for you. So beyond, I think later on in life, we're probably going to get to that point where, there's a part of, my wife hates this, but there's a part of me that I want that magnet in my finger. I want that long-term addition of storage to my memory internal systems. I do want stronger arms or whatever. I want to be able. I want this ubiquitous. I want that heads-up display contact that lets me actually see and identify people that are coming to me. And I want that ubiquitous power computing grid on my clothing and on my body. I think it'd be cool, right?
And the other thing is technology moves ridiculously fast. If you look at the ports that are just on your laptop in the last 10 years, we've gone from parallel to serial to USB 2 to wireless USB to USB 3. And there's a certain point when things are no longer going to work, right? You're not going to be able to put a different implant or a different chip back into interface with whatever nerve to electrical interfaces we have. So you're going to be stuck with that.
Yeah, there's a slight problem with scarring.
Yeah. And so, I mean, if a company goes out of business and you've got 3-generation-old technology, there's no taking that out. I mean, you're going to either degrade your quality of life or occasionally you're going to slap yourself in the face. I mean, which, for some people might actually be an improvement of quality of life depending on your job. But
yeah, here we go. A new product from Apple. It's the iThink.
no.
This is just a little piece of art that I found randomly on the internet that people are thinking about this stuff.
Yeah.
Go to the next slide.
Sure.
I didn't have the other one. That's
all right.
cool.
So,
So this is so there's some greater non-technical implications of this, right? So 2020,
sure.
you're going to the MoMA or the Smithsonian or the Portrait Gallery because the Mona Lisa is traveling there, and you go in, you pay your ticket, but your kid has these great optical implants that allows them to see, and you go in and you go into the museum, you're looking at the stuff. Your kid asks you, "Mommy, why can't I see the art?" Well, honey, actually, it's because I couldn't afford the DRM license, so they've disabled that your ability to see this stuff. Sorry. Yeah, it is a digital divide issue.
So, I mean, social
There's
class becomes huge instantaneously, right? There's the haves and the have-nots, and as there always have been, but this takes it to an entire another level. And so as a result, there will always be people that have nots, which will have hand-me-downs, which will have older grade technology. And has anyone ever found that computer in your cousin's basement that was handed from your grandmother that was infected with malware from 1995? We're going to talking about the same thing, but it's going to be people's arms, it's going to be people's eyes, and you're going to have to be debugging 6 versions of firmware on someone's eyes to make sure that it starts rendering correctly again.
Yeah.
Instead of malware where you'll get AIDS because this shit's hard to keep.
Yeah. There's just the part of the problem with this talk is that there were so many different areas to go. We've left out a lot of stuff. And one of the things is that, we'll show you the video if we have time at the end, but they're using viruses to deliver targeted genetic modifications to nerve cells to enable that cell to react in new ways to what they call optogenetic therapy, which is, you send a blue light, it turns the cell on. You send a green light, it turns the cell off. And they've done some studies with basically finding exactly which cell is necessary to make a mouse turn right. And so they turn the light, he's running around in his little box, and they turn the light on, and he goes right all of a sudden. The light goes off, and he stops. He starts just kind of walking around. We'll show you the video in a bit. So the conclusions.
We're screwed.
It's a common theme at this conference, right? I mean, we've already done it wrong. We're going to continue to do it wrong. This is probably not a space where we want to do it wrong. We don't want to borrow the machine-to-machine communication code that's being used in our fantastically well-secured SCADA networks. We want to build. I think this is an area where we want to build it from scratch. So this is really kind of a call to action to everyone. It's highly likely that all of you in this area, under 40, under some age, you guys are going to go to the hospital later. At some point when you get older, right now you're invincible, drink all you want. But later on, when you get that replacement liver, your cyborg liver, you're going to leave the hospital with something. And you're probably going to want to be really interested in, well, how was this developed? What firmware is it running? What revision am I on? Does my doctor really know what he's talking about?
And can I add a subroutine that'll make me sober in 20 minutes for this talk?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's actually Wired magazine has an article from 2005 that talks about a guy who got an ocular implant, and he hacked it. He made it work better.
So what we're trying to avoid is basically in 15, 20 years, you're walking down the street and a little emote pops up that says, "Press X to not die," or "Send $5 to this PayPal account to keep walking." We're trying to avoid that situation from happening, but I mean, that we're looking at the same level of security that was put into some of the very earliest technologies from computers from a browser standpoint and a malware standpoint, being now ported over to the implants, and we really need to fix this before it becomes a real problem. So where do we go from here? if you get an implant, or you know someone that has an implant, or you can find somebody that has an implant, ask a ton of questions. Find out where it was built, find out what it does. I'm very dedicated to my craft, but I was not going to go through elective cardio surgery to get an implant so I could pull it back out and play with it. The cheapest one we could find was about 25 grand, secondhand, off of Craigslist in LA. I don't know if I necessarily trust that to begin with.
Yeah, I think it was a surgeon that was going out of business or something.
Yeah, and eventually implants are will start to port over to other organisms. Like a lot of the research done now is on mice, but somebody will want to keep their cat or dog alive much longer if the implant is available. So
There's some really cool videos on YouTube of monkeys feeding themselves with robot arms, just by thinking about bringing the food to their mouth. It's awesome.
And
Go hack your grandpa.
Yeah, if you get to. No, please don't. All right.
So this is how you can get a hold of us. I mean, we're really interested in talking about this stuff more, and this is not our day job. Adam and I do other stuff. He's an attacker. I'm a defender, and but we just got to talking about this stuff and started doing some Google searches and some research, and holy crap, there's a lot of stuff out there that's really interesting. And so we'd love to develop these ideas, maybe work on that threat model for a cyborg. If you have better ways of splitting up the space, let me know. These are how you can get a hold of us. Anything else?
Any
Is that it?
questions? I think it's all
Okay.
I got.
So questions?
Did you look at any of the liability waivers that are signed?
Liability papers.
No, did we look at any waivers?
When you get an augmentation?
Liability waivers when you get an augmentation. Did we look at those? Liability waivers, yeah.
I mean, I can tell you if the companies are overthinking enough to protect themselves.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. I mean, that probably would be a good place to look. We didn't look at any of that stuff because when we thought about liability waivers, we're like, that's not going to protect me. Yeah.
The question was, do you get a liability waiver or EULA? I'm pretty sure you get both with one of these.
Yeah. Yeah, you get both. There was another question over here?
Oh, it's just
Comment?
that all those liability waivers do is protect the company. They do
Yeah.
nothing to protect you.
Right.
Yeah, so he's saying that all the liability waivers do is protect the company, not you. But I think the point of the gentleman in the back was that they can probably reveal some really good information about what they're trying to protect. A lot of this stuff is proprietary too, even though some of the companies are looking at Zigbee and some other, low voltage wireless stuff. So, any other questions? Yes.
When I'm listening to your talk, I can't help but think of how long we've been doing electronic warfare.
Yeah.
Number one. And number two, I'm reminded of that story in Iraq of the drones. The insurgents were intercepting the video feeds from the drones using a $26 piece of software they downloaded from the internet.
Yeah.
I mean, so now all you're doing is basically going that one step further
Yeah.
and saying now the equipment that we're hacking can be inside you.
Yeah, so he's saying that, we've been doing cyber warfare for a long time, and yet we end up with a scenario where the video feed on a UAV can be captured by a $26 piece of equipment in Afghanistan or Iraq. And we're extending that a little bit. Yeah, in fact, my family and I bought a Prius recently. Yeah, I know. And we were doing the test drive for it, and it has a wireless key that authenticates, interacts with the car. You don't have to plug it in or anything. It just has to be near the front of the car. And in fact, I think it's been months since I've seen the key. So when we're doing the test drive, the guy who was selling the car, sleazy guy, said, "Do either of you have a pacemaker? Because this could potentially interfere with that." It's not a scenario I want to deal with. I don't want to just happen to walk by Adam's lab with this device, and just because he's fooling around with some stuff, walk by HackerBot Labs, they never do any crazy stuff with radios there.
So from an attacker perspective, one of the interesting things is a lot of these systems are closed and they're black boxes. But we can start to infer protocols, we can start to infer frequencies, we can start to infer how they're designed by what they don't play well with. So we started looking for signs of things in other places where it's like, oh, you shouldn't walk next to this with a pacemaker, you shouldn't walk next to this with an ICD. And start going, okay, these things, this is a blah-bitty-blah, it operates on frequency this. The pacemaker has to operate somewhere in a range of frequencies and power structures from there. So right now, it's almost purely black box to trying to find any real information about this.
There's a lot of effort to use the white spaces. I don't know if you guys know anything about that, but you probably do. But using the licensed but unused spectrums for some of this wireless communication.
Yes.
I just wanted to say I'm a nurse and I've been working with patients with ICDs and internal defibrillators, pacemakers for over 20 years from times that they were kind of really simple and not very well protected.
Yeah.
Where you couldn't walk in front of a microwave
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why I think the primary. She says that she's a nurse and she works with this. She's been working with people getting ICDs for about 20 years or so. And yeah, I mean, is it ethical to be doing this if we can't really protect it? I don't know. But people are doing it anyways, you know, and people are getting it. They want their hearts to keep pumping. And so is a little piece of Faraday cloth going to protect them? Right, yeah. You know, actually, it's funny because one of the recent papers that talks about defense mechanisms for ICDs talks about using a cloaker that basically is would act either as a proxy or a third-party authentication mechanism for the communication to your ICD. This was work done by UW. And the issue of that is that it's a fail-open thing, because if you have a medical emergency, right, just toss it off to the corner so it's no longer interacting with you. Now you can talk to now anything can talk to the ICD. So is that a scenario we want to live with? I don't know, maybe. Doesn't sound like the right solution to me.
Two related questions. One, when is this technology going to hit the developing world, if ever?
Mm-hmm.
And as a follow-up to that, what's the potential for knockoffs or pirated or
Yeah.
simulated?
Yeah. Is your ICD made in China? She's asking when is this going to hit the developing world, and what's the potential for knockoffs? I think it's already hit the developing world. In fact, I don't know how many of you know about medical tourism. We're pretty. I mean,
Tour, T-O-U-R.
yeah, like going. I mean, thank you. So, yeah.
All right, I think there's one last question.
So, like, if you're around cell phone, would that, like, potentially mess with your,
Your implant.
yeah, mess with the implant, because doesn't that use microwave?
You should go do some testing on that.
No, I mean, the different devices operate on different frequencies,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it would be
it
designed
depends.
to not operate with something as common as a cell phone.
Pretty crowded.
It is.
I mean,
it
the
is.
spectrum is crowded, though, so.
But that's why I mentioned the white spaces stuff, right? Because some of the technology that they're looking at, trying to use some of that space that's unused, but kind of sitting between different places, right?
I think we're being kicked off.
Yeah, we
so.
got to leave. Thanks everybody for your time.